You ever have a game that, despite not really playing much of it, you still have tons of memories of it? Like, maybe you ended up watching a friend or family member play the game a ton, or you might have seen various Let's Plays of said game? Well, turns out there's a game like that for me. An RPG released on one of Sony's most successful consoles. The game I'm talking about, which you might have already guessed by now, is none other than The Legend of Legaia! Now, the thing about this game that really sticks out to me is the combat. Instead of having a standard attack and skills menu, you gotta input directions in this bar to essentially create fighting game combos and trigger your special attacks. With this unique battle system, I would recommend this game to any RPG fan looking for something new to... Huh? Was that?
No.
There's been some sort of mistake? I'm talking about the wrong game? Oh shit, I'm talking about the wrong game! God damn it, I can't keep making dumb mistakes like this. First I forget to finish a video properly, then I talk about the wrong game. I bet next video someone else will randomly read a line with no explanation. Anyway, this is the game I'm actually talking about, Final Fantasy X. This is one of the many games I grew up with, alongside games like Luigi's Mansion, the Jak and Daxter trilogy, Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, and Kingdom Hearts 2. But unlike those games, I didn't really play much of this one. Because of this, I'm very well aware of what the characters, story, and world is like, but I'm not too familiar with how stuff like the sphere grid works, what the role of all the characters are, or what the deal with Blitzball even was. So today, I'm going to play through the game to actually form a valid opinion on it. Now, before we start, I'd like to bring attention to the fact that I'm playing the International Edition on a PS2 emulator with a widescreen hack. Some of you might be asking why I would play it this way, considering there's been a remaster available for both this game and its direct sequel on PC and most modern platforms. Well, allow me to start a mini-show called Find the Remaster! Where I pit a game's remaster against the original to see if you can tell which is which. Today, we're looking at Final Fantasy X's opening cutscene. Can you guess which one is the original? It sure is a doozy! Yeah, so it turns out the porting process resulted in the characters' faces being less detailed and expressive than the original, as well as other graphical errors and aspect ratio sins. There's a really good thread on Twitter listing these mistakes that I'll put in the description so I don't waste time talking about it in this video. The International Edition has all the gameplay changes in the remaster without the need for installing an English patch. Although, just a heads up, when starting a new game, this first menu asks if you want the original or expert sphere grid, the second one asks if you're sure, and the third one asks if you want the game with Japanese or English text. Man, this title screen brings me back. The pleasant use of color, the water graphic in the center, the official Final Fantasy X website being listed, don't go there by the way, and the two instances of the tile being right next to each other for some reason. Our story begins in a bunch of ruins and a cast of characters sitting around a campfire, but they will not sing the campfire song because this is a sad scene with sad music. You know, unless hearing the song in multiple YouTube videos has desensitized you to its emotional impact. This blondie here walks up this hill and begins the world's longest, most drawn-out monologue ever.
Listen to my story.
Oh, god damn it, this is already too confusing. Here I am telling you the story of a guy who's telling me a story. How deep does this storytelling-based rabbit hole go? Should I start playing Storyteller from Guilty Gear, that one song that despite my 150 plus hours in Strive I still haven't gotten yet? So the actual beginning of the story starts in this futuristic city with a boppin' theme. Our protagonist is a professional athlete. His official name is Titus, or Titus if you're wrong, but since nobody in the story ever refers to him by name, you can rename him to whatever you want. And for this playthrough, I've named him in honor of one of the greatest Tumblr posts of all time. He is Yoshi, and this is his story! And what a story it is, as Yoshi here is the star of a blitzball team, the Xanarkand Apes, and they're kind of a big deal. As for what the heck blitzball is, imagine soccer, but in a giant dome of water instead of a grassy rectangle. While he's talking with a group of kids about getting blitzball lessons, a mysterious hooded child ominously tells Yoshi that he can't teach him tonight, and Yoshi just kinda goes along with it without questioning it. But hey, the kids don't seem to care since they'll definitely be getting those lessons tomorrow, and they do a neat little gesture to Yoshi. Wow. On the way to the game, Yoshi passes by this sign with this cool looking guy on it. This guy is Jekt, and he's considered a hero to the people of Xanarkand. Around 10 years ago, he mysteriously disappeared and nobody knows what happened to him. Despite this, Yoshi doesn't seem to respect him all that much. Arriving at the game in time, Yoshi is just sitting around peacefully waiting for the game to start when suddenly— oh shit! Screamo jump scare! While at first this song seems a little intense for a sporting event, turns out it's actually for a coincidentally timed destructive force approaching the city. And it's not long until the destruction catches up to the stadium and starts ripping it apart and causing Yoshi to fall to his death. Oh, he miraculously survived. Okay. Yoshi, trying to get a hold of the situation at hand, runs into Auron, a character that is heavily underutilized in Kingdom Hearts 2 despite how awesome he is. Like, seriously, he's only part of 10% of the world he's in, and he's only an active party member for 5% of it. Anyway, Auron and Yoshi seem to know each other, but all Auron does is say that he's been waiting for Yoshi and continues his morning stroll. As the chaos unfolds around the city, time suddenly stops for everyone except Yoshi and that creepy hooded child.
It begins. What? Don't cry.
So great, everything is falling apart and the only people I talk to either don't seem to care or just say some cryptic nonsense. As we catch up with Auron, we get a clear view of the creature destroying the city, and its name is Sin. No, not that child with a stick, I'm talking about the water monster here. By the way, I want to point out the seamless transitions between the in-game animated cutscenes and the CGI cutscene. For a PS2 game, I would expect an awkward pause when the cutscenes swap, but this game just doesn't waste any time flaunting its visuals to you. And as you can probably tell from that cutscene, little monsters appear from Sin. Thankfully, Auron came prepared and gives Yoshi a sword from Jet,
My old man?
who is apparently Yoshi's father, meaning that Yoshi isn't just an athlete, he's an athlete with daddy issues. No wonder the ladies love him. And with this, we get a minor introduction to combat, taking down enemies, fighting a mini-boss, and getting a quick intro to environmental hazards as the pair slowly approaches Sin. Wait, why would they do that? Oh, there they go, getting sucked into the wormhole. Bye! Now, apparently this wormhole puts Yoshi to sleep, starting one of many dream sequences our hero has throughout the story, and this one has him swimming through the destruction towards Jack's voice, ending with Yoshi seeing his younger self while doing his whole inner monologue thing. Yoshi then wakes up from his nap and finds himself around some submerged ancient ruins with Auron nowhere to be found. And Yoshi isn't doing so great in these ruins. As the place crumbles around him, the sea life almost kills him, he gets himself stuck further inside, and has his life threatened by freezing and starving to death. And although he manages to start a fire, food is a different problem.
I need food.
Yeah, you and me both, pal. And he's dreaming again, but this time it's a dream with a flashback variety. And turns out Auron and the Hooded Kid have been tormenting Yoshi for a while, which explains that part in the intro where— oh shit, the fire's going out! And there's a monster wanting a fight, and Yoshi is understandably annoyed with everything going wrong.
Give me a break.
Oh damn, I'm kicking this guy's ass! Suddenly, a group of people burst through a door, and they have guns. And holy shit, that girl's naked! Quick, cover up that community guideline unsafe woman! Wait, no, she's just wearing skin-colored clothing. Alright. She seemingly helps out with her arsenal of explosives, but after the battle, Yoshi gets himself surrounded by the rest of the group, and they speak, Sorry, I don't speak Italian. Okay, fair enough, probably shouldn't have said that. This time, there's no dream sequence, just more of Yoshi getting yelled at in a foreign language, so basically more nonsense. And this cool mohawk guy doing gestures isn't helping. That is until the woman suddenly explains the situation in English, to the surprise of our hero. So, some explanation. These guys are Al Bhed, and they have their own fictional language of the same name. While exploring, you might have noticed these blue circles on the walls, and they've got messages also written in the Al Bhed language. Throughout the story, you can find these books around the world that translate a letter into English. The coolest part about this to me is that in the ruins, there's a sphere where you can transfer this data from another save file, so if you do a second playthrough, you can find out what the first message says, as well as what the characters who speak Al Bhed are saying. Hey, look, there's a book on the ship! Now their dialogue makes perfect sense! So now Yoshi has to go help these guys with exploring more submerged ruins, but more technologically advanced than the other one. Certain parts of the ruins require interacting with terminals to open the way, and how does the hero handle these? By whacking the potentially fragile technology. This incredibly smart move somehow works, but attracts a big sea monster to fight, and after dealing with this boss, the group finds something big deep below, and it turns out to be an airship. The group will head back into the ship to celebrate this discovery, except for Yoshi, who isn't allowed in and remains on deck, still dealing with the fact that he's hungry, and judging by how he handles the food given to him, I can't say I blame them. He could have eaten their entire food supply. And now I can finally stop calling this person the woman because Yoshi asks for her name. She's Riku, with 2 Ks, as opposed to the Riku with 1 K. And the reason she took so long to properly introduce herself was that her coworkers thought that Yoshi wasn't human for some reason, which, I mean, they're kinda right. Wait, we? Oh no, they're French. Get out of there, Yoshi! So Riku and Yoshi talk to each other, and Yoshi explains everything that happened before she showed up, and she believes that based on what he told her, Sin's toxin caused Yoshi's memories to get messed up, and drops the bombshell that it's been 1,000 years since Sin destroyed Xanarkand. Riku decides that dropping Yoshi off at a place called Luca would be a good idea since he plays Blitzball, and tells him that saying he's from Xanarkand is a bad idea since it's become a holy place after its destruction. But before they can head over, Sin appears and knocks Yoshi off the ship, separating him from Riku. Yoshi, after his second encounter with Sin, washes up towards the beach and suddenly gets hit by a Blitzball out of nowhere. Looks like a team found him during practice, and he decides to show off with a Blitzball trick that impresses all of them. Back in his element, the team's captain asks what team Yoshi plays for, and in the heat of the moment, probably assuming everything with Riku was just some weird dream, slips out the fact that he's from Xanarkand, which goes exactly how you would expect. Realizing what happened to Yoshi, the captain, called Waka, decides to escort Yoshi to the nearby village, but before they leave, Yoshi asks about Xanarkand being destroyed 1,000 years ago, and Waka confirms that's the case, while also explaining that was more than just Xanarkand destroyed, as Sin did the same to other cities powered by what the game calls Machina, basically just machines but given a fantasy-like name. And Waka believes that Sin exists because people back then were too reliant on Machina and let it get out of hand. On the way, they talk about Waka's team, the Besaid Aurochs. Yoshi gets asked to join the team for an upcoming tournament, learns that the Aurochs haven't won a game in 10 years, and how the tournament will be Waka's last game since he messed up his chance last year because of something stuck on his mind. Yoshi also finds out that the Aurochs' goal all this time has been to do their best. He instantly realizes why they sucked balls for so long, and decides that they need a new goal. And before you know it, they arrive at Besaid Village. Before leaving Yoshi on his own, Waka quickly goes over how to do a prayer, and it's the same gesture those kids in Xanarkand did. Back then it was a Blitzball sign for victory, and stuff like this provides a really interesting element in the storytelling, where the protagonist learns new things about how life is like in this time, but has to constantly pretend like Sin's toxin made him forget those things. Like when he said he was part of the Xanarkand Abes and had to stop the awkward silence by mentioning Sin. And later, when he enters the temple, asks what a High Summoner is, instantly offending everyone inside, and quickly falling back to blaming Sin for not knowing. Oh yeah, by the way, High Summoners are summoners that have defeated Sin, creating a time of peace until Sin eventually comes back. And all summoners have the ability to, well, summon powerful entities called Aeons to protect the land of Spira. And with that, Yoshi has gotten himself familiar enough with this new world to take another nap, and, you guessed it, have yet another dream. This one shows what happened after Jack suddenly disappeared, Yoshi's mom desperate to find him, with the young Yoshi not really caring about his disappearance, even if he may die. Which means he doesn't have your average everyday daddy issues, he has advanced daddy issues. Upon waking up, we discover that an apprentice summoner has been undertaking a trial for an entire day, and after hearing this, and that it might be dangerous inside, Yoshi rushes in despite it being forbidden to enter during the trial. Here we have the Cloister of Trials, where the game goes from an RPG to a puzzle game, utilizing glyphs, spheres, and block pushing to progress or obtain treasure, and this first one is nothing special, mostly just a tutorial to get familiar with the gameplay of these. Before finishing the trial, Waka catches up with Yoshi, explaining that only summoners and their guardians can enter the trials, as well as bringing up the fact that he himself is a guardian for the summoner, planning on focusing on that after he quits Blitzball. In the chamber, there are 2 of the summoner's guardians, Kimari Ranzo, a Ranzo with a broken horn who's been protecting the apprentice summoner for most of her life, and Lulu, a woman in a black robe with way too many goddamn belts. I could make a joke about who the character designer is, but those jokes are a tiny bit overused, so I won't bother. Anyways, they are unsurprisingly upset with the fact that Waka and Yoshi showed up unannounced, but before any arguing starts regarding the fact that some random blondie entered, the apprentice summoner exits the final chamber, announcing that she has succeeded and has become a real summoner. This is Yuna, the other main character in the story. As a summoner, she must go on a pilgrimage to other temples across the world of M.I.R.A.I and complete their trials to eventually become a high summoner to destroy Sin, while obtaining the ability to summon a new Aeon with each trial completed. And this trial gives her this insane looking bird called Valefor. Side note, you can actually rename the Aeons just like the protagonist. However, I won't be doing that, as the only thing worse than my jokes is my ability to come up with names that don't sound idiotic. However, if I did, I'll say that I would rename Valefor to The Word. Why, you ask? What, you haven't heard? I thought you would have heard by now. That the bird's the word. With Yuna's trial complete, Yoshi gets familiar with the Aurochs and tells them that their goal is no longer to do their best, but instead is one simple word: victory. Because that's why you play sports competitively. Before calling it a night, Yoshi meets up with Yuna and gets to know her a little, and learns that she's the only one who believes Yoshi is actually from Xanarkand. Dude, you're never gonna believe this. There's yet another dream sequence. This time it's all about Yoshi's insecurities regarding how Jack doesn't seem to respect him all that much.
You with a woman? You can't even catch a ball! Oh, what's the matter? Gonna cry again? Cry. That's the only thing you're good for. Huh? What'd you say?
I hate you!
Huh?
I hate you!
With this sudden awakening, Yoshi overhears a conversation between Lulu and Waka mentioning someone named Chapu, who is Waka's younger brother that died a year ago, shortly before Waka's tournament started, which was why his team lost that day. Also, according to Waka, he looks like Yoshi, which was why Waka wanted to help him as much as he did. As the next day comes, the gang starts to leave for Yuna's pilgrimage in the Blitzball tournament, and Waka gives Yoshi this cool-ass water sword that was intended for Chapu, but was never given to him before his death. But then after the first possible battle, a flaming sword drops, and I immediately replace it because fire is like 10 times cooler than water. At this point, the game slowly starts giving out the final tutorials for combat, which makes this a good time as any to finally talk about it. So, as you can probably tell from this footage, this game uses a turn-based battle system for its combat. My monitor! I can't replace that with my broken. Oh, that's just a battle transition effect. Okay. As I was saying, this is a turn-based RPG. In fact, it's the last numbered Final Fantasy game to use this battle system, and I gotta say, this is a pretty good way to go out. First thing I want to point out is this UI element over here. This displays the current turn order, and it's not just there to look pretty, as depending on what actions you take, you can manipulate it to your advantage. For example, something everyone can do, using an item, can give a character a chance to get an extra turn, and increasing a character's speed stat by casting haste on a party member can do the same. I love messing around with this feature so much that when I see other RPGs that use the same basic idea, I can see the skeleton of Final Fantasy X in its place. At this point in the game, you'll have access to about 5 party members. Technically, I could talk about Auron and Riku, but since they were in the prologue, I'll talk about them later. Tidus, yes, I'll use his canon name in the segment to avoid confusion, is a standard fighter class who doesn't have any special attacks, but has a focus on increasing the speed of his party members, giving them more opportunities to attack. And he also has a familiar battle stance. Waka throws his balls as an attack, and can also apply debuffs to enemies like blindness. The tutorial implies that he should focus on flying enemies, but it's literally just because he has higher accuracy stat at the start, not because of his weapon. He would still have an easy time if he wielded nunchucks or something. Lulu is the black mage of the group, and since her weapon is a literal doll, her physical attacks are extremely weak, so it's better to use one of the elemental spells she has to offer. Elemental weaknesses are incredibly easy to work with. Fire spells beat ice beams and vice versa, and the same applies to water and lightning. But it's not just limited to elemental enemies, most normal enemies have a weakness as well, like plant-based enemies will be weak to fire magic. Yuna, as mentioned earlier, is a summoner, but she's also a white mage as she has access to many support spells when Aeons are not available. When they are available, summoning an Aeon causes the rest of the party to leave the battle, as they become the sole party member in the fight until either the enemies or the Aeon dies. And the reason they become the only party member is because these Aeons are extremely powerful. For example, Valefor has the same spells as Lulu, but not only does more damage, but also has an ability that has a chance to delay the opponent's turn, allowing for more opportunities to attack. Kimahri is kinda like a Dragoon in the sense that he uses a spear and can do the jump command, but that's where the Dragoon similarities end, as he's more like a blue mage, learning skills used by fiends by using the skill Lancet on them. The max party size is 3, and if a certain party member would fit a certain fight better, you can press L1 to swap them out with whoever's turn it is. Thankfully, this doesn't take a turn away, so you don't have to worry about accidentally bringing someone other than Yuna to heal the party. By now, you've probably noticed the gauge under the character's health and magic points. When that gets filled up, you can use this game's version of the limit break, called overdrives, and each character has something unique about their overdrive. Titus's has you timing a button press to enhance the power of the overdrive, Wakka's has you stopping slots to give special effects to his balls, Kimari's is the enemy skills he's acquired with Lancet, Yuna's makes the Aeon she summons start with a full overdrive gauge to obliterate anyone unfortunate enough to challenge her, and Lulu's is Mario Party 1 for the Nintendo 64 to cast multiple spells in a row. Soul Bad Guys makes you do a half circle and then forward in the circle button to activate Tyrant Rave, Potemkin has to do 2 quarter circles and the triangle button to perform the Heavenly Potemkin Buster. Wait a sec. Those two aren't Final Fantasy characters. I think I should stop talking about the combat now. Now we're on a boat, and before heading to the tournament in Luca, there's going to be a quick pit stop at Kilika and its temple, and I want to take a moment to mention how great of a protagonist this game has. This dude right here is such a lovable goofball despite his dire circumstances. Like, look at the scene where he jumps on this dude's shoulders and steals his binoculars and just starts fucking around with them. His voice actor, James Arnold Taylor, is such a perfect fit for this role. He's well known for voicing Ratchet in the Ratchet & Clank games, Spider-Man a few times, Obi-Wan when they can't get Egg McGregor, and more infamously, Johnny Test from the hit TV show Jonathan Testimonial. While on the trip, we learn that Yuna is the daughter of Braska, who became a high summoner 10 years ago, so she has quite the legacy to live up to, just like Yoshi did with his father Jekt. Yoshi and Yuna get another chance to talk to each other, and Yuna talks about her interest in Xanarkand, and she seems to know quite a lot for someone who's most definitely not been there before its destruction. Turns out, Yuna learned this from a man named Jekt? And he was her father's guardian? And he showed up in Spira 10 years ago? Although, Yoshi thinks it must be some kind of coincidence, because he believes that Jekt has been dead since his disappearance, with Yuna countering this by mentioning that both he and Jekt got to Spira in a similar fashion. Surprise! Sin shows up for its second boat attack this week, and it wants to take out Kilika as well, and the crew doesn't want that to happen, so they stick a couple of harpoons onto it and try to stall for time. In this boss fight, Sin can't attack directly, instead it just moves around and spawns minor enemies infinitely, and because Sin is, well, not on the boat, it can only be hurt by ranged attacks like Wakka's balls or Lulu's magic, so you'll inevitably have someone on cleanup duty with the minor enemies. Once Sin takes enough damage, it'll snap the harpoon off the boat and knock Yoshi into the sea. Again. Thankfully, Wakka is here to save him from washing up onto another beach. However, Sin left behind a jellyfish monster for the duo. As for why Yoshi and Wakka only, that's because the rest of the party isn't capable of fighting underwater, so you should make sure that they aren't underleveled for future water battles. Once this bozo goes down, everyone on the boat is safe! The residents of Kilika, on the other hand... Arriving at what's left of Kilika, Yuna offers to perform a sending, which is a ritual a summoner performs to send the souls of the deceased to the far plane, basically to the afterlife, and if this ritual isn't done, those souls become fiends, resenting those who continue to live. Also, during the sending, Yuna starts walking on water, like, holy shit, summoners can do that? Sign me the fuck up! The next day, the gang is ready to go to Kilika's temple, but before they go, Yuna asks Yoshi to be her guardian, but it's quickly shut down by Lulu and Wakka since that idea could be discussed later. In order to get to the temple, the group first needs to get through this jungle. Whoa! That's a big ass plant. Huh, not even 100 Crusaders could beat it? Sounds like you guys need better fighters. Right before arriving at the temple, the trip is interrupted by a Sin spawn, which are powerful fiends that are born from Sin, and if left alive, will eventually bring Sin back for them. In this fight, the boss is weak to fire magic, however, the tentacles will absorb any magic casted onto it, and for an early game boss, it's pretty decent. Nothing too crazy, but it's fine for what it is. After the fight, Wakka unexpectedly asks Yoshi if Zanarkand has ever had fiends showing up around there, and after casually answering that it doesn't happen too frequently, Yoshi immediately questions why Wakka suddenly believes him, to which Wakka responds with a theory he came up with that sin doesn't kill people, but instead takes them through time until they come back to the present. Despite how plausible the first half of that theory is, considering that there's potentially 2 people that this has happened to, Lulu catches on to what Wakka is implying and reminds him that Shapu's corpse was discovered in Jose, and to top it off, tells our trio of people with important family members that they cannot just replace them. Arriving at Kilika's temple, the members of a blitzball team, the Luka Goers, mock Wakka and his team because, well, you know, they haven't won in 10 years. Yoshi remarks how much their shithead attitude reminds him of Jack, which surprises Yuna since it doesn't sound like the Jack that she knew, further supporting Yoshi's belief that these Jacks couldn't be the same person. Entering the Cloister of Trials here, Yoshi is kicked off the elevator due to the fact that he isn't a guardian yet, and we wouldn't want a repeat of what happened with Besage's temple, forcing Yoshi to wait until they come back. However, before he can go outside to wait, he's blocked off by Donna, a summoner who had just earlier came back from her trial, and just like the Luka Goers, thinks she's hot shit because, oh, Baraska only had 2 guardians, so she's only gonna have 1. Anyway, she asks why Yoshi isn't in there, to which Yoshi answers, and Donna has her guardian throw him onto the elevator and force him into the trial to attempt to sabotage Yuna's pilgrimage. And with the elevator refusing to go back up, Yoshi is left with no choice but to go further in. So if you couldn't tell from the fire outside the temple, the fire inside the temple lobby, and the fire outside the trial's entrance, this trial's gimmick is fire, powered by these red spheres. Using them burns down doors, but also blocks the way, so you'll need to remove them in order to proceed. Entering the final chamber, Wakka and Lulu are understandably upset to see Yoshi, since if this keeps up, Yuna could lose her status as a summoner. While waiting, Yoshi learns that behind the cool-looking door is the Faith, who were people that fought sin and lost their lives, yet lived on in statues until a summoner calls upon them and they appear as an Aeon. As Yuna emerges with a new Aeon, Yoshi's monologue mentions that the song playing in the chamber was something he remembers from his childhood, and since both of his encounters with Sin and M.I.R.A.I never brought him back, this reminder of his home that he can never return to eats away at him until it gets too much for him that he screams.
Ah!
But hey, Yuna can summon Ifrit now! Did you know I haven't played Final Fantasy 16 yet? And with everything planned to do in Kilika is done, the group hops back on the boat and makes their way to Luka.